Hi shop hoppers, it's Allison from QuiltNCode in Burnsville, North Carolina. I am so excited to be featured as one of the designers in your Shop Hop magazine this year. I have created a video to talk you through the Shop Hop notebook cover. And so this notebook is for all your cards that you'll be collecting from each one of the stores. And I have created a cover that will go on the back of it. I also have a pen closure that's going to keep it closed and a handle so that you can have your hands free for all your shopping. We hope to see you here in QuiltNCode and enjoy the video. The materials I'm using for this project include a sky fabric that's directional, so I will make sure that that direction is nice and long ways. I have the Shop Hop fabric for the bottom of my mountains and 3 other mountain pieces. I have 3 other colors for my other applique on my project that could definitely be out of any types of scraps that you have. I have 3 other scraps, the black, brown, and white for my bear and my mountains. I have my Shop Hop notebook. I have some magnetic snaps for my closure. I have some lightweight interfacing that's fusible. I have fusible fleece, and I have heat and bond fusible webbing for my applique. Patterns are already reversed, so all you need to do is trace them onto your fusible web. The mountains are printed on 2 pages of paper. So line up your design and simply tape in place, then you can trace. On the webbing, I make sure I label everything to make it easier when I'm laying it out on my fabrics. The mountains especially, so that I know exactly which one's going where. And then I've labeled just colors up here for my different elements. B gets the darker green. C gets the lighter green. On the Rhodes fabric for the Shop Hop fabric, there is definitely a directionality to it. And so the cars are mostly pointing up like that. So I'm making sure that my car wheels would be riding on that flat line down there before I iron. That way all my cars are at least pointed upward. Okay, it's time to cut out all my pieces. I'm going back to those paper scissors. My paper scissors are pretty sharp, and so they work just fine for this, but I also have a pair of singers that I use when I'm doing my fabric. And now I'm going to cut directly on my drawn line. That gives me a nice clean edge when I put it onto my blue sky fabric and go to applique. When I have straight edges, like on the bottom of my mountains, I simply pull out my ruler and cutting board and use my rotary cutter. Now that we have the mountains all fused to the applique, I'm simply going to take the backing off, and I have a nice shiny edge. Sometimes we haven't ironed it quite enough in the corners, and you might have to re-iron. So make sure you've got that shiny side. And you just peel this right off, and now we have a sticker. So now I have a shiny edge to my mountains, and I can place them however I want on my sheet or on my blue backing. I'm laying down the mountains one at a time. The blue, about 1 inch from the top. And then when this dark green comes down, it's also over here a little bit lower than that. I am visually placing according to the diagram that's in the pattern. The most important piece of this part, once you get the mountains in place, is to put your sand down next, but the sand needs to go underneath that green mountain right here, or the Rhodes mountain, I should say. And then your water needs to come up underneath your sand. And then once you're happy with the placement, you can iron it down. But make sure that this area in particular has your down right. To protect my ironing surface, I am using a press cloth here. You could use parchment paper, you could use an old piece of fabric, anything to protect your ironing surface. And then I'm going to start, since I have such a small space here, normally I'd work on an ironing board and have everything out. I'm going to start down here in this lower corner since I know I love how this looks. At least I will now. All right, fantastic. So this looks pretty good right down here, but I think I'm off the edges in some, and that will get trimmed off later, so I'm not worried about that. When I iron my pieces down, I press to begin with. And so I'm not ironing or moving the iron. I'm just going to press down just to get everything in place. And then I can move the iron some. And so now that I've got that nice and pressed, I can kind of move up, press things in place first. That helps keep things from shifting. Again, you don't need any steam with this. You just want a little heat. And I take my time with it. I'm just going to gradually work my way over here, starting here at the bottom, moving toward the top, pressing a little bit first. And now I am ready for appliquing. Since I have so many different colors, I'm going to use silky invisible thread so that I don't have to change every time I go to a new piece of applique. You can do your applique starting from any point that you want. I'm going to start with the A, work down to the B, the C, and the D. I'm starting with the tacking stitch, just so that I don't have to worry about going back and hiding any threads. I'm going to stop here, do a couple tacking stitches. My machine has a tacking stitch option. If your machine doesn't have a tacking stitch option, you can certainly just go backwards and forwards or stitch it a few times in the same place, and that will give you the same action as the tacking stitch. I'm already on the tacking stitch, so it's already done it for me. I just guide the fabric. I don't push, I don't pull, I just let the fabric do its thing and let the feed dogs take it through the machine. If I need to pivot, I always put my needle down and then I can move my fabric. I use that a lot when I'm in curves that are thin. I don't have any problems without curves. I can just guide that fabric. All right, now I'm going to repeat that with B, C, and D. The applique for the mountains is all done. Now to put on the other pieces. So a couple of tips that you can use here are that on my press cloth, I did not undo the white, but I did undo the black. And now that I have it placed nice and where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and fuse those down. The same thing here with the yellow. I've gone ahead and taken the yellow off, but left the black on. And I'm going to just fuse that yellow in place. Now I have solid pieces and I don't have to worry about those little pieces going anywhere. And so I do this simply by taking that piece off. I'm leaving that piece on, but I'm going to go ahead and peel this one off, place it where I want it. And again, with these little pieces, pressing versus ironing is best. So just press down with your iron and then you can sort of move it around once you know you're in place. With my little bear nose, I'm sort of saving him till last because he's going to go on top of everything else and he's so small. It's easier to keep up with this little piece of fabric than it is to keep up with the nose. I have placed my notebook underneath the front so that I know exactly where I want to place my pieces. So once I have those down pretty well, obviously this one didn't stick like I wanted it to earlier, so I'm going to redo that. All right, so now that I have everything kind of in place, I don't have my bear yet. Going to wait, but I kind of like how this is positioned on the front of the book. So knowing that I have a little bit of excess because we're going to have a 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around. Now I'm ready to iron. I think I actually want these wheels on top. Move you down just a little bit. And you can certainly do one at a time. versus all of them at the same time, knowing that that little piece did not actually stick like I wanted it to. I'm going to start there and press down. I'm a get her done quilter. I am not a perfectionist quilter. Too many things to do to have perfection in my life. All right, so I've gotten that side done. And then over here, it's pretty easy to place the sun. That's just going in the sky. And so I've taken off the backing of my sun. Going to press that in place. And now I'm going to go ahead and figure out where my bear is going to go. To help you figure out how to place the nose, that little piece right there that sort of hangs out goes in towards the body. And then I place the body so that it's right there on the window. And now I'm going to press in place. All right, so now I'm going to applique all my pieces in place, and then I am going to do some hand work around the logo of the shop hop so that we can see the actual logo. With the blanket stitch, curves are tricky, and so I'm going to show you a little bit about how I do it. So first thing I do when I've got these tight curves like this sun is I go straight in and double check with just my hand wheel whether or not I'm going in the right direction. And I want to make sure that I tack this down, so I better put my tacking stitch on. All right, excellent. So now I'm going in the right direction. I have knocked my speed way down so that I can pivot quite a bit with this stitch. Okay, so I'm constantly watching where my needle is and remembering what my needle is doing. The nice thing is that I'm using this clear thread, so if I make a mistake, you're not going to see it anyway. Lots of pivoting, lots of using my hand wheel. I've also shortened my stitch a little bit, so it's a little bit easier to make those curves. I like to get my intricate stuff done first while I'm fresh. And so I've done my sun and I've done my logo. And now I'm getting ready to move on to the bear since he's got a little bit of intricacy. And then everything else is going to be super easy. Instead of doing the little nose separately, I'm just adding it right into my quilting. And then I'll probably have to tack at the end of him. So I'm going to tack here, and then I'm going to go over here, finish him off. Everything from here is large curves. I mean, we've got straight down here, but straight's easy. So now I'm going to finish it up. Funny how I keep those straight edges for last. I'm going to trim up some threads here and then I'll finish it up. I love this part. Now we're going to give some character to the shop hop design by using a running stitch and a satin stitch or overlock stitch. I'm using 2 strands of white embroidery floss on my needle, and I'm simply going to knot that and come up from underneath. And I have marked with my friction pen along my South Carolina, North Carolina border right here, and I've sort of put an outline in here for my needle. And so I'm going to come up here. I don't really need the stitch going around the edge. Kind of have that already. So my running stitch I simply put my needle in and I come right back up. All right, so I finished it up. Now I'm going to knot it off. So I'm just going to come in here, come under the fabric right there, go around a couple of times, holding it down with my thumb and pull the needle through, and I got a nice little knot there. And then I'm going to go up and do the needle. I'm going to use a back stitch for the needle. And so I have my 2 strands of thread. I've knotted again. I'm going to come up from underneath. And now I want some nice tight stitches right next to each other. So when I go down here, I can come up a little, just like I was with the running stitch. A little closer there. But now I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to fill in this hole. And then I'm going to come in right where my other hole was at the other end of that stitch. And I'll go this way, a little farther over, fill in this hole, and continue just like that. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to knot it off. And I would love to get a little character for my little bear here. So I am going to give him an eye with the fabric, the thread that I have left on my needle. Go ahead and knot this up. I come up right here where I want my eye. And then go around a few times and go in directly where I came up. I am ready for quilting. I have put my fusible fleece on the back side of the front of the notebook cover, and now I'm going to do my quilting. So there are numerous ways that you can do quilting. I am going to start by doing a simple straight stitch on my mountains, and then once I get my mountains in, I am going to do some freehanding around my sun and get some clouds in my sky. I want to use a decorative stitch on my car, but I probably will just outline the car as well. And I might actually put some decorative stitching in the lighthouse. Not quite sure yet. So I also might do some meandering in through my mountains, or a meandering with a circle. Down here, I might go around a couple of my bugs and my truck and just get stuff so that it poofs out just a little bit and has that quilting quality to it. My machine can use its regular foot to do the straight stitching and decorative stitching. If you have any problems though, switching to a walking foot is fine. Mine doesn't have any problems when it's just this thickness. Getting any thicker and it's time to put on my walking foot. So like I said, I think I'm just going to give the mounds a little bit of definition simply by outlining them first, and then I might add in some freehanding later. I'm sticking with the invisible thread because really all I want is texture here. I don't necessarily want for my stitches to show. So you can see that the definition is already coming in with just a little bit of line in there. And so I could stop right there and be perfectly fine. But I do want to get some stuff going down here. And I got a couple of extra things I want to add in here. I quilt for the texture. And so along this mountain right here, the light green one, I am going to do a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch. It's called echoing. And so I'm echoing the top line of this mountain right here. Set my needle to a 1/4 inch from the edge of my presser foot. And I'm just going to use that as my guide to give me some lines in here, and that will get me some great definition in my mountain. So I'm going to follow this line right here, and then now that I've done one stitch, I'm simply going to follow a 1/4 inch from that stitch and keep on going down the mountain. Ready to run into this mountain right here, and so I'm just gonna go up, I'm gonna stop, and then I'm gonna pick it right back up on the other side. All right, so I'm gonna also do right in here in between the car and over by the lighthouse. All I've done is straight lines here, and it's added so much dimension and texture to my project already. So now what to do next? For the mountains, I've decided I'm just going to meander. So this one, I'm just going to do a little meander. And so I am just going to be stitching, hopefully not crossing the lines. And then in the greener mountain, I'm going to do loops. And so I will cross the lines. When I start this process, I start by bringing up my thread from the bottom. I have put on a quilting foot. That way I can see everything I'm doing. The nice thing about the quilting foot is it allows me to move all over the place. The thing you want to notice about a quilting foot on your machine is that you may not necessarily with this fleece see that it's all the way down. And so make sure that your presser foot's down. And then once you start sewing, you're gonna be able to see it. Okay. The trick too for yarn quilting is first you want to make sure that you've come up and gone down in the same place a few times. And it's easier for me to just do that with the hand wheel or my needle up down. That way I don't have to worry about that after that. The trick is to keep your foot pedal at a steady speed while you're moving your fabric. And so that can be kind of difficult. If you have a speed control on your machine, go to your favorite speed and put it there. And that way you can put your foot all the way down on the pedal, and then you don't have to worry about controlling it so much with your foot. So I stopped right there, and I stopped with a few stitches in that area, and now I'm going to pull my piece out. I cut from the top pretty close, but on the bottom I usually cut about an inch away, and you can see it better on the back, that texture of what I'm getting, and then all you're seeing is texture on the front, and that's what I want. So now I'm going to go over here to the other mountain, do the same thing. I'm going to start by pulling up my thread, stitching a few. You can tell I keep putting my presser foot down because on this machine it really isn't showing me that it's down until I start sewing. At the end, I can go straight off because this will be my salvage and will get hidden later. Okay, so I can snip my threads. And now I'm going to start back over here, but I'm going to do loops this time. And since I'm starting right off the fabric, I do not need to pull up the threads because they're already over here. I am going to start by doing a couple stitches in the same place though. With my loops, I like to go one in one direction and one in the other direction, but it is still a meander. Finish off this nice dark green mountain. So now I have all my mountains done except for the bottom one. For the bottom mountain, I am going to outline some of these cars and maybe the road and the trees and that type of thing. And I'm also going to do some clouds up here on my sky. So for the sky, I'm just going to outline some clouds here for you. And really, I am not even being all that particular. Let's just get some like definition in with these clouds. So you can see just how it just gives a little bit of texture up on the sky by just bringing out some of these clouds. And so I'm not being particular. I'm just sort of randomly stitching, almost as a meandering stitch, but sort of following the outline of the clouds. I'm not really caring whether or not they actually outline them. I mean, a cloud's a cloud. It's totally off on that one. Let's see. Let's go back over here. So I'm done quilting. I did a little bit around the trees and the cars and the roads, and all I wanted to do is give some texture, and so that popped things out. So it's a little bit easier to see on the back side what I did, but because I'm using that clear thread, it's a little harder to see, but I definitely gave some texture and some movement to the front of the design. Let's begin making our straps by turning them wrong sides together long ways each, and we're going to iron both straps so that we can get a crease line down the center. On one side of the fold, once I opened it back up, I am placing the fusible fleece. On the other side, I have fusible, regular, lightweight interfacing. I'm going to use a cover cloth here. It's actually my lining, because you don't ever want to directly iron onto interfacing or fleece. Now I'm going to simply fold over the salvage long edge so that I can have a nice clean edge on the outside of my strap. And so I'm going to iron that down, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm being careful not to iron on directly onto the interfacing, whether it be the fleece or the other. And then I fold it over one more time. I'm going to finish this up by doing a top stitch on each side so that it looks nice and polished. To create the inside pocket, I want to first finish off the top edge. So I'm just going to fold over 1/4 of an inch and then fold over another 1/4 of an inch. And now I'm going to top stitch about 1/4 of an inch down on the top of my pocket, just to give this pocket a nice clean edge. All right, now we have our backing fabric, and I've pulled out our magnetic snaps. You're going to have a snap that has a nubby side and then an indented side that will sneak right in there, and boy do they ever. And then you have 2 washers to go with them. So we're going to set those to the side for just a bit and measure where we want to have these snaps. I want the side for my enclosure piece to be the piece that has the little nubby end on it right here. And then the enclosure piece, or the indented side, is going to go on the actual front of the notebook. And so I want this to be nice and centered. To measure for where I want my nubbing, I want to remember that I'm going to be in 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go down 1/2 an inch from the top, and I'm coming in from the fold 5/8 of an inch so that I have my 1/4 of an inch over here and I'll be in the center. I have gone on either side of that so that my prongs here are coming in like that. And so I've marked exactly where my prongs are going to be. So all I'm doing is making a little hole in here so that I can get my prongs in. You can use a seam ripper. I'm just using my sharp little scissors here just to get things started. Once you put that prong in, you just don't need much space. So right there, I'm going to stick this prong in right here, just like that. Looks like I need to go a little further on the side to get through that interfacing. And I'm doing this on the side that has the fusible fleece. All right, so there we go. I've gone through that. All right, so now my prongs are through. I'm going to take another piece of fusible fleece right here and stick it right on top. I didn't measure anything, I just eyeballed it. And then I'm going to take my washer, stick that on top, just like that. Push it in as tight as I possibly can. In fact, I'm going to move this out of the way so I have a nice hard surface. And then I'm going to push in. I am using a flathead screwdriver for this. Because those prongs, they do take a bit of a beating. Okay, that's pretty flat. And so now on this side, it is perfect. Ah, just love it. All right, let's do the same thing to the front of our notebook. To measure for the notebook, we want to come up 5 inches and be 1 inch in. All right, so I'm going to use my scissors to just make a little hole there and there. And then, oops, I probably want that hard edge again. All right, so on this side is where this goes up front. So I'm going to stick that prong right through. So going to give myself a little extra padding. Next comes the washer. Stick my washer down there on either side of the prong. I think I do it better from this angle. So we have that, and now let's finish our pen closure so that we can get our notebook finished. Let's finish the pen closure. So I'm going to turn right sides together, and I'm going to stitch around the side and the top 1/4 of an inch from the edge. I'm leaving the bottom open so that I can turn that. Took a little finessing getting it over that little nubbing part. I just took it slow. It's not like it's going to break a needle or anything. It's just in the way. And now I'm going to turn it inside out. And this is what it looks like once I've turned it inside out. And that's what it looks like on the back. And fits onto the front. Just like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. All right, let's finish this baby up. I have directional fabric for the flaps inside my notebook to hold my notebook on my notebook. I'm going to put my pocket on this side of the notebook so that when I open up the notebook, there's my pocket. Therefore, I want to have my finished edges for my flaps in the center here. And so to finish these edges, I am going to turn over 1/4 of an inch. Turn over 1/4 of an inch again, press this in place really good, but I'm also going to pin it. I'm going to be putting it into the sewing machine in that direction, so I'm going to put my pins in that direction as well. So I will stitch this in going that direction, and then I'm going to do this side as well. I will press and fold it over just like this, pin it in place. We have all the finished pieces to complete the notebook. We have our straps, we have our 2 flaps, we have our pen closure, we have the finished quilted top, and we have our lining. So we're going to start with the lining. The lining needs to be face up. Then you're going to place your flaps face up. All right. Then you're going to place your straps. We want one on one side. And the way I do the straps is I have my open side here where I have my folded round and my fold on the other side. And then here I'm going to place my strap just like this. And I want it 2 inches from the bottom and 2 inches from the top. So let's see how good I eyeballed this. Not too bad. So there's 2 inches right there. And I'll go ahead and pin that one in place. And then over here, let's see if I did any better. Not really. So we're 2 inches there. And then we're going to go ahead and do this other strap on the other side. All right, so again, I'm finding that open part, and then I fold them like that or bring my thumbs together and then place them down. Measure to make sure that I'm in the 2 inches. That way the straps will line up. There's 2 inches. Pin that in place. And then from the top, 2 inches. Pin this in place. Finally, on the side opposite of the pocket, we're going to want to put the pen closure. So in between the handle, I have measured 5 inches up, made a mark. Now I'm placing my pen closure with my nubby side down towards the lining of the fabric, and I'm going to pin everything in place and sew. Now that we have the whole lining together, we're going to bring in our front piece, okay? So we want the front piece to be like that. We're going to turn it over like that. And now we're going to pin all the way around, leaving 4 to 5 inches here at the bottom so that we can turn it inside out. And so we will pin all the way around. This particular, I always pin this step really well to make sure I'm matching everything up well. This is the bottom of my notebook cover. I want to leave a good 4 to 5 inches down here. So I'm going to move these pins over, and just to give me a marker of when to stop sewing, I'm going to put 2 pins here so that I know to stop sewing. I think I'm going to move these over just a little bit more so I can have, just gives me a marker so that I won't sew over this area. I know you just can't wait to get this cute little thing onto our notebooks, but we have one little step left, and that is to close it off. And so what I like to do is open it up a little bit, and actually I'm going to start by ironing up here, just getting everything pressed a little bit in place. The front looks great, but getting the linings and stuff to settle down and that type of thing, the ironing just helps. All right, so I like to start by getting in here and just going over my 3/8 of an inch with my lining, getting that pressed down nice and neat. And then I do the same with my top. Press that down. I do a lot of twisting and turning with my fingers to get that out. These little frays, I'm going to throw those inside of my quilt. Just like that. Lots and lots of twisting and turning. And then as I feel like I've gotten it where I need it, I go ahead and pin like this so that I can pull those pins out as it's going through the machine. A little bit more pressing. Remember, pin. Oh my goodness, one more sewing step left and we're done. So here she is. A tip for getting her into the notebook is to turn your notebook up like that. So you're gonna stick one side in, and then as your notebook goes up just like that, you can stick the other side in, just like that. There she goes. And those corners will work themselves out. Snaps it closed. And there she is, the finished product. We have a pen closure that you can put your pen in for your shop hop. We have a pocket on the inside. You can put your passport right there and you are ready to go. I sure hope you have a great time on your shop hop. Thank you so much for following along in this video series. If you enjoyed this video series, you can find more at our website, QuiltNCode.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you bring in your finished notebook cover to our shop during Shop Hop and show us, you get an extra prize. We hope to see you soon. Bye!